Night draped the Nevada desert like a heavy curtain, the sky a pristine mirror reflecting the glow of a million stars. Out here, in this wild stretch of golden sand and jagged rock, Delta 9 Air Base stood on high alert, a sentinel in the emptiness. Captain Lucas Kane sat strapped into the cockpit of his X-19 Shadowstrike, eyes locked on the glowing dashboard. Tonight, his orders were simple: patrol the airspace along the border. Years in the Air Force had seasoned him well, but beyond brutal sandstorms or hush-hush weapons tests, nothing ever broke the routine. Until now. A streak of green light ripped across the sky, faster and brighter than any meteor he'd ever seen. The jet's radar blipped wildly, screaming an alert. Unidentified target. Mach 6 velocity. Instinct kicked in. Lucas yanked the stick, engines roaring as he gave chase. He'd flown through plenty of high-stakes missions, but nothing prepared him for this. A massive metallic craft, shimmering like an emerald, hovering midair. Its eerie glow was unlike anything human hands had built. "What the hell," he muttered under his breath. Then came the boom. A crimson energy blast struck the ship from nowhere, sending it spiraling out of control. It plummeted toward the desert, trailing fire like a dying star. "Shadowstrike. Track the crash site and prep for rescue," crackled the command over his radio. Lucas brought the jet down near the impact zone and bolted toward the wreckage. A smoking crater yawned before him. The alien ship still smoldering in its center. Amid the twisted metal, a hatch hissed open. A figure stepped out. She wasn't human. Her silver armor gleamed under the moonlight. Her face so flawless it seemed carved from a dream. Emerald eyes sparkled beneath long, curved lashes, her skin shimmering with a faint metallic sheen. To Lucas, she looked like a goddess torn from some ancient myth. She fixed him with a stare, proud, and maybe a touch disdainful. "Who are you?" Her voice was clear as a bell, but cold as frost. Lucas blinked. "I was about to ask you the same thing." She scanned the barren landscape, then turned back to him, her gaze sharp as a blade. "This is Earth. A backwater planet of fragile creatures." Lucas frowned. "You just crashed out of the sky, and I'm here to save your ass. And you're calling me fragile?" She crossed her arms, unfazed. "You wouldn't understand, human." Lucas sighed. "Fine. You want to stand here all night, or come with me?" She hesitated, then followed, her steps so light they barely touched the sand. He drove her back to Delta 9 in a military jeep. Stealing glances at the alien woman in the passenger seat. She sat ramrod straight, arms folded, her face a mask of pride and detachment. "What's your name?" he asked, breaking the silence. "I don't owe a human my identity," she replied flatly. Lucas chuckled. "All right, I'll call you Space Stranger, then." She glared at him like he'd just insulted the galaxy's dignity. Finally, she exhaled, as if speaking to him was a chore. "I am Princess Lyra of the Zoran Empire." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Princess? For real? Do you think I'd lie?" She snapped her head toward him. Eyes icy. He shrugged. "Just didn't expect to be chauffeuring a cosmic royal." Lyra said nothing, staring out the window, her gaze hinting at something deeper. Delta 9 Base. The steel gates groaned open as Lucas rolled in. Inside, soldiers scrambled, jaws dropping at the sight of an honest-to-God extraterrestrial, the first in human history. General Grayson, the base commander, strode forward. A grizzled man with silver hair and piercing eyes, he carried decades of battle in his stance. "Kane, report." Lucas snapped to attention. "Found her in the wreckage of an alien ship, sir. No other survivors." Grayson sized Lyra up, head to toe. "Who are you?" Lyra met his stare without flinching. "I'm no enemy. But if you try to imprison me, know this, it'll be a mistake." A few soldiers gaped at her nerve. Grayson smirked. "You're on Earth now, princess. You don't call the shots here." Her eyes narrowed. "And what will you do?" Grayson nodded to two guards. "Take her to isolation. We need answers." Lyra glanced around, then walked off without a fight. But as she passed Lucas, she paused. You're just like them, aren't you? Afraid of what you can't comprehend. Lucas didn't answer. He just had a gut feeling this wasn't going to be simple. Delta 9's isolation chamber was built for the worst, reinforced alloy walls, biometric locks, constant surveillance. Yet Lyra sat there, perched on a metal chair, her regal air unshaken. Those emerald eyes staring through the one-way glass. She knew they were watching. And they were. Lucas stood with Grayson and a team of scientists in the observation room. Grayson's arms were crossed, his gaze hawk-like. She said anything yet? A tech shook his head. Nothing, sir. She's been still as stone since we locked her in. Lucas glanced at her on the monitor. He wasn't sure if he was impressed or unnerved. I want to talk to her, he said suddenly. Grayson turned. You think she'll spill something we don't already know? She's not your average detainee. If we want the truth about why she's here, going straight to her might work better. Grayson mulled it over, then nodded. 5 minutes, Kane. Isolation chamber. Lucas stepped inside. The heavy door clanging shut behind him with a dull echo. Lyra didn't look up as he approached. Hey, princess. How you holding up? He asked, keeping his tone even. Like a caged animal. She shot back, her eyes flicking to him. He shrugged. At least we didn't chain you up. Because you know chains wouldn't hold me, she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. Lucas smirked. Fair point. He pulled up a chair across from her. But you didn't resist. Why? She went quiet for a moment. I don't waste energy on pointless fights. He nodded. Smart move. Still. We need to know, why are you on Earth? Lyra's brow furrowed, then she spoke slowly. I came on a diplomatic mission. But someone didn't want me to finish it. Lucas stared. What do you mean? She sighed, her icy mask softening just a hair. My warship was attacked as I approached this planet. An ambush, maybe rebels from my empire, maybe an enemy you humans don't even know exists. Lucas's fists clenched. If she was telling the truth, Earth might be on the brink of a war it wasn't ready for. So why do you look down on us? He asked out of nowhere. Her gaze snapped back to him, sharp as ever. Because you're weak. Bound by emotions, swayed by greed and fear. You lack technology, real power. If you're not careful, Earth will fall before you even see it coming. Lucas laughed. Is that so? I think we've got a long debate ahead, princess. 3 days passed with Lyra locked in Delta 9. Lucas was the only one who could talk to her without hitting a wall of defiance. Though still proud, she didn't sneer at him like before. But the calm didn't last. Unidentified object entering Earth's orbit. A text shout jolted the command center as the radar flashed red. Lucas and Grayson bolted over. Status? Grayson barked. The radar operator skimmed the data. It's 3 times the size of the princess's ship. Moving fast. No response to hails. Lucas felt a chill. The ones who attacked her. A voice cut in from behind. Without a doubt. All eyes turned to Lyra. She stood at the command center's entrance, her 2 escorts looking flustered for letting her slip isolation. Grayson scowled. Who let you out? She ignored him, striding to the console. Her eyes gleamed as she studied the screen. That's a Titan-class warship from the Zoran Empire. But it's not ours, it's rebel-controlled. Lucas's fists tightened. You sure? She nodded. Separatists aiming to topple our monarchy. If they're here, I'm their target. Tension gripped the room. If Lyra was right. Earth was caught in someone else's fight. Should we shoot it down? An officer suggested. Lyra shook her head. Your tech can't handle that ship. Attacking would only provoke them. Grayson stared her down. Then what's our play? She paused, then looked at Lucas. You need my help. He sighed. Got a plan? Her eyes burned with resolve. Free me. And I'll stop this attack before Earth pays the price. The fighter craft roared out of the atmosphere, slicing through thick clouds into the void of space. Lucas peered through the canopy, feeling small against the endless dark. But what really set his nerves on edge was the hulking ship ahead, a Titan-class warship, just as Lyra had said. It dwarfed her craft threefold. Its black armor pulsing with glowing veins. Massive energy cannons flickered red, primed to fire. Lyra sat at the controls, her emerald eyes blazing as she punched in commands. "I'll try to hail them," she said. Lucas gripped the stick. "And if they don't feel like chatting?" She glanced at him. "Then we fight." He exhaled. "Figured." The screen flickered as Lyra patched into the enemy ship. A face appeared, a man with gray-green skin, black eyes like pits, a scar running from forehead to chin. "Lyra," he drawled, voice thick with mockery. "Thought you could outrun me?" Her fists clenched. "Coran, stand down. This isn't our world. Attack Earth, and you'll spark a war we don't need." Coran laughed. "The war started when you betrayed the Empire. Your rotting dynasty ends with me, Lyra. I'm here to fix Zoran's fate." She glared. "By destroying an innocent planet? You're no Zoran warrior anymore, Coran. Just a traitor." He tilted his head, amused. "We'll see." The feed cut out. Seconds later, the Titan's weapons flared to life, cannons glowing hot. "Damn it!" Lucas yelled. "Plan B." Lyra gripped the controls. "Hold on, we're fighting." Her ship, small and nimble, darted around the Titan as crimson beams tore through space. Lucas manned the weapons, firing plasma bursts, but the warship's armor shrugged them off. "It's too thick. We can't dent it like this," he shouted. Lyra frowned, then her eyes lit up. "There's a way." She keyed in a sequence, pulling up a 3D map of the Titan. A red dot pulsed at its core. "That's the main reactor. Take it out. And the ship's done." Lucas stared. "How do we pull that off?" Her lips tightened. "I'll board it." He gaped. "What? Are you nuts? That's a fortress crawling with enemies." She met his gaze. Unwavering. "You don't have to come, Lucas. This is my fight." He gripped the stick harder. "If I let you go alone, you might not come back." She paused, then said softly, "I know." Lucas took a deep breath, then grinned. "Then I'm in." Her eyes flickered with something new, emotion, maybe, but she just nodded. "All right. Let's end this together." Their craft weaved through the Titan's barrage, closing in on the target for the riskiest move yet, breaching the beast. Lyra's ship danced around the Titan, dodging its fiery salvos. In the cockpit, she and Lucas shared a look of steel resolve. "The auxiliary dock on the starboard side's our best shot," she said, fingers flying over the controls. Lucas studied the 3D schematic. "Guarded?" "Definitely," she replied. "But if we're fast, I can disable the shield for a few seconds." He sighed. "A few seconds doesn't sound like much to stay alive." She smirked. "Don't humans say, fortune favors the bold?" He laughed. "Not sure that applies to storming alien warships, but let's roll." She guided the craft in tight, skimming past towering energy turrets. At the dock, she triggered a wrist device, unleashing a sharp electromagnetic pulse. "Shields down," she yelled. Lucas fired a grappling line, anchoring their ship to the Titan's hull. "Go!" he shouted, popping the hatch. They slid down the cable, landing in a shadowy corridor inside the warship. Dim green lights pulsed along the metal walls. The silence was eerie, broken only by their footsteps. "How long before they spot us?" Lucas whispered. Lyra activated a scanner. 5 minutes, tops, before security flags us." He grimaced. "Then we'd better hustle." They crept through the halls, ducking patrols behind corners. Lyra led with uncanny precision, like she'd memorized the ship's layout. Finally. They reached the reactor chamber, a cavernous space alive with glowing energy columns. At its heart sat the main console, their ticket to shutting this beast down. One problem. Coran was waiting. He stood in the center, flanked by 5 armed guards. "I knew you'd come, Lyra," he sneered. "But bringing a human? That's just reckless." Lucas raised his plasma rifle. "Don't mind me. I'm just here to crash your party." Coran smirked. "Try if you dare. You're outmatched." He waved a hand, and laser fire erupted across the room. Lucas and Lyra dove behind an energy pillar. "We need that console," she shouted. He nodded. "I'll cover you, go shut it down." She hesitated, then rolled out, sprinting for the controls. Lucas opened fire, dropping 2 guards before they could blink. But Coran drew a blazing red energy sword and charged Lyra. "Watch out!" Lucas yelled. She spun, parrying his strike with a dagger from her belt. Sparks flew as green met red in a deadly clash. Lucas kept the remaining guards busy, but Coran was too much for him to tackle head-on. Every swing from Coran carried brutal force, pushing Lyra back. Yet she held firm. "Think you can beat me, Coran?" she taunted, icy calm. He sneered. "I don't think, I know." He lunged with a vicious slash, but Lyra sidestepped, throwing him off balance. In that split second, she struck, plunging her dagger into his shoulder. Coran roared, staggering back. Lucas seized the moment, firing a plasma bolt into the console. A deafening alarm blared through the ship. Reactor overload. Self-destruct in 5 minutes. Lyra yanked her blade free and retreated to Lucas. "We've gotta go," she yelled. He nodded, but spared Coran one last look. The rebel knelt, green blood pooling, yet still grinning. "You might win today," he rasped, "but the war's just begun." Lyra turned away, racing with Lucas through collapsing corridors as explosions rocked the ship. They reached the dock where their craft clung to the hull. "Get in!" Lucas bellowed. Lyra leapt into the pilot's seat. Engines roaring. As they peeled away, the Titan glowed white-hot. Seconds later, a colossal blast tore it apart, a fireball lighting up the void. Lucas slumped back, exhaling. "We did it." Lyra met his gaze, her usual pride replaced by something softer, respect. "Thank you, Lucas." He grinned. "Anytime, Princess. I'm starting to enjoy this space hero gig." They shared a quiet laugh as the craft turned toward Earth, carrying a story that would change them forever. Delta 9 base, 2 days later. Their ship touched down to a hero's welcome. The base buzzing with news of their victory over the Titan. Lyra, once a suspect, was now an ally. Grayson greeted them, a rare smile cracking his stern face. "Well done, both of you. You saved the damn planet." Lucas chuckled. "Saving the planet's a stretch, but I'll take the compliment." Lyra stepped forward, all business. "General, I need to contact my mother's flagship. This attack must be reported." Grayson nodded. "We'll set it up." Tech scrambled to link Delta 9 with Queen Vera's command ship. Soon. A hologram flickered to life, a regal woman with platinum hair and piercing green eyes. She studied Lyra, then spoke softly. "My daughter, you're safe." Lyra bowed, voice steady. "Mother. I was ambushed en route to Earth. A rebel Titan tried to kill me." Vera's brow creased. "Coran." Lyra nodded. "He's alive, but his ship's gone. We can't let him threaten the Empire's peace." The Queen's gaze shifted to Lucas. "And this human?" Lucas straightened. "Lucas Kane, Earth pilot. I helped your daughter take down that warship." Vera's lips curved slightly. Rare for a human to earn Lyra's trust. Lucas glanced at Lyra, who looked away but didn't argue. The Queen continued, "Earth sheltered my daughter in betrayal's hour. That won't go unrewarded." Grayson spoke up. "Queen Vera, if Zoran seeks peace, we'd welcome a partnership between our worlds." She nodded. We've no intent to invade Earth. But if this rebel war escalates, your planet could become a battlefield, something I'd rather avoid. She turned to Lyra. Return to Zoran, Lyra. We need you here. Later, Lyra stood on the base's tarmac, staring at the starry sky. Lucas joined her. You're leaving? He asked, a hint of regret in his voice. She nodded. I must. My fight's not over. He clenched his fists. So, this is goodbye. She paused, then faced him. Lucas, you've changed how I see humans. You're not weak. You've got a courage even Zoran warriors would admire. He smiled. Gonna miss me? Her lips twitched, warm for once. Maybe. She stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. But I don't think this is our last meeting. Lucas looked into her eyes, knowing she meant it. Hold you to that, princess. She smiled. I will. Pilot. Hours later, Lyra lifted off in a Zoran craft. Lucas watched from the launch pad as her ship streaked into the night, a strange mix of feelings swirling in his chest, not quite loss. Not quite relief. He'd never imagined bonding with an alien, let alone a haughty princess who'd once scorned humanity. But after all they'd been through, everything had shifted. You look restless. Kane, Grayson said, snapping him out of it. Just not used to waving a friend off into space, Lucas replied with a faint grin. Lyra's ship pierced a warp gate, emerging near Zoran Prime. The Empire's glittering heart. From above, she saw silver cities and massive ships gliding like living things. No time to linger. She landed at the royal palace and was ushered into a war council with Queen Vera and her generals. Mother, we can't ignore the rebel threat, Lyra said, striding in. Koran's not alone. He's got allies, and if we don't act, he'll grow stronger. Vera nodded slowly. I know. But tell me, what did you learn from Earth? Lyra faltered. Before crashing there, she thought humans frail. Ruled by emotion. Lucas proved her wrong, grit, bravery, pushing past limits. She lifted her chin. They're tougher than I thought. They could be allies someday. Vera smiled. So you found something worth keeping from that world? Lyra didn't answer. But Lucas's face flashed in her mind, sharper than ever. Earth, Delta, 9 base. 1 month later. Life settled back into routine for Lucas, test flights, briefings, grueling drills. Yet Lyra lingered in his thoughts. What was she doing now? Fighting on some distant star. Thinking of Earth, of him. Kane, you've got a visitor, a voice crackled over his radio. He frowned. Who? No idea, but you'll want to see this. Curious, he stepped outside. His heart skipped as a silver ship descended under the night sky. The hatch opened. There she was, those sharp green eyes, royal armor gleaming, a proud smile on her lips. Told you it wasn't the last time, pilot. Lucas laughed, walking toward her. Welcome back, princess. Lyra stepped off the ramp. Her regal bearing softened by a flicker of warmth in her eyes, different from their first clash. He crossed his arms, grinning. Thought you'd forgotten us. She arched a brow. I keep my promises. Don't I? Grayson approached, wary but intrigued. Princess, what brings you back? Her tone turned firm. My mother believes Earth can't be ignored. We're facing all-out war with the rebels. If we don't stop them, it'll spill here. Grayson's jaw tightened. Earth's in danger. Not just Earth, the galaxy, she said. I'm here to propose an alliance. Lucas squinted. Alliance? She met his gaze. Yes. If our worlds unite, we can protect each other. The rebels don't just want Zoran, they could use Earth as a staging ground. Grayson rubbed his chin. Teaming up with an alien civilization. That's no small call. I know, Lyra said. But I'm not leaving without an answer. Lucas smirked. Starting to like Earth, huh? She paused, then smiled. Maybe. 2 days later, Earth's top brass met with Zoran reps in a secure war room. Lyra stood tall, unflinching as she laid it out. If Earth joins us, Zoran offers advanced tech, military aid. And a planetary shield against invasion. A general cut in. What's the catch? Cooperation, she said bluntly. You've got warriors with grit even our empire respects. We need a joint force to crush the rebels. Murmurs rippled through the room. Partnering with aliens was uncharted territory. But saying no could leave Earth exposed. Lucas stood. I know it sounds crazy, but I've fought with her. I've seen Zoran's power and the rebels' threat. If we sit this out, we might not get a second chance. Silence fell. A senior official spoke. We'll need to deliberate. But we're not dismissing this lightly. Lyra nodded. I'll await your decision. After the meeting, she and Lucas strolled through a quiet corner of the base. Think they'll say yes? He asked. She gazed at the stars, thoughtful. I don't know. But I hope so. He grinned. First time I've heard you talk about hope. She turned to him. That's your fault. His pulse quickened. They'd faced death together, gone from foes to partners. Now, under the night sky, something deeper stirred, beyond friendship or trust. A shooting star streaked past. Lyra watched it, then said softly, Lucas, if war comes, will you fight with me? He didn't hesitate. Always. 3 days later, Earth agreed to the alliance. The news hit every classified base worldwide. For the first time, humanity linked arms with an alien race. In Delta 9's briefing hall, Earth officers faced Zoran delegates, Lyra at their head. Lucas sat beside her, the weight of the moment sinking in. Grayson spoke first. We've run the numbers. If these rebels are a galactic threat, we can't wait for them to knock. Another general nodded. We'll send elite teams to support your ops. In return, we want access to Zoran tech. Lyra paused, then replied, fair. To fight as equals, Earth needs strength to match our forces. She tapped her wrist, projecting a hologram, a sleek combat suit blending both worlds' tech. Project Guardian, armor built for Earth's warriors, fused with Zoran defenses. Lucas eyed it, thrilled. You've got this all figured out, huh? She glanced at him, smirking. I told you, Lucas. I don't leave Earth empty-handed. The room went still, but it was a silence of agreement. A new alliance was born. Then the alarms screamed. An officer burst in, pale. We've got trouble. Everyone jumped up. Lucas, Lyra, and Grayson raced to the command center. The radar blazed with dozens of unknown signals breaching Earth's atmosphere. Lyra's fists clenched. It's them. Lucas stared at the screen. Alien warships streaked down, leaving fiery red trails. Rebel assault, he asked. A tech confirmed, no ID, but the design screams Zoran rebels. Grayson turned to Lyra. You said they weren't focused on Earth. She gritted her teeth. I underestimated their desperation. Lucas gripped his fighter's controls as it prepped for launch. Then we hit back. Lyra nodded. Together. The Nevada sky ignited as Earth jets roared up to meet the alien fleet. Rebel lasers shredded clouds, bursting into fiery blooms. Lucas piloted his X-19, weaving through enemy fire. Lyra's voice crackled in his earpiece. Lucas, don't let them box you in. They're faster than your jets. He grinned, barrel rolling out of a barrage. Faster doesn't mean smarter. A rebel ship tailed him, spitting plasma. Lucas gritted his teeth, yanking the stick into a tight spiral. The enemy couldn't keep up, slamming into friendly fire and erupting in flames. One down. He whooped. Lyra, in her Zoran craft, matched him move for move. She zipped past 3 foes, unleashing energy blasts that vaporized 2 in a flash. 8 left, she said, cool as ever. Lucas laughed. Turning this into a contest. You're losing, pilot. After an hour of brutal dogfighting, the rebels retreated. But Lucas didn't relax, this wasn't an invasion. It was a test. Lyra saw it too. Back at the base, she joined him, her expression grim. They didn't commit fully. This was a warning. He nodded. Sizing us up. And next time, they won't hold back, she said. Grayson stepped up. How long do we have? Lyra inhaled. Not much. The real war's coming. Lucas glanced at her, then at the troops. Then we'd better be ready. Heads nodded in unison. The Earth-Zoran alliance was fresh, but there'd be no victory lap. A war among the stars loomed, and only one side would survive. Delta, 9 base, post-battle. After the rebel skirmish. Delta, 9 buzzed with tension. Engineers worked around the clock, dissecting enemy tech, while Earth and Zoran troops drilled together. Lucas stood in the hangar, wiping grease off his hands after tuning the X-19. Everyone was gearing up for something bigger. A familiar voice broke through. You seem on edge, pilot. He turned to see Lyra approaching. Her light Zoran armor glinting under neon lights, silver hair catching the glow. He smirked. You're not. That last fight was a warm-up, and next time, they won't run. She crossed her arms. Eyes sharp. I'm worried. But fear won't help. We need to act. He nodded. Exactly. And that means a plan. In the command room, Earth and Zoran officers huddled around a holographic tac display. Grayson pointed at a rebel outpost orbiting Rigel's edge. Per Princess Lyra's intel, this is their coordination hub. Take it out or seize it, and we cripple them. A Zoran officer spoke. It's guarded by at least 2 fleets. A frontal assault suicide. Lucas folded his arms. Then we don't go frontal. Lyra caught on. A stealth op. He nodded. Yeah. Slip a team inside. Disrupt comms, or trigger a self-destruct. The room weighed the odds. Grayson agreed. It's solid. But we need the best for this. Lyra turned to Lucas. I'm in. He grinned. Then so am I. As the plan took shape, none noticed a shadow watching. In a remote Delta 9 corridor, an Earth officer quietly fed data into a hidden comms device. They've got a plan. Strike team hits Rigel in 48 hours. A low voice replied, good. Keep us posted. This ends soon. The officer pocketed the device and slipped away, unaware of green eyes tracking him from the dark. Right before launch, Lyra pulled Lucas aside. I need to tell you something. He saw the gravity in her face. What's up? She clenched her fists. I think we've got a traitor. A chill ran through him. You sure? She nodded. I caught an odd signal in the base. Someone's leaking intel. He gritted his teeth. So the rebels know we're coming. Her eyes locked on his. Yes. And if we don't find the mole before we go, we're walking into a death trap. Lucas took a deep breath. The mission was already a gamble. Now it was a loaded gun. But he had no choice. He'd play the hand dealt, even if a knife waited in the shadows. Lucas stood at the command center's monitor, eyes glued to the flickering data. Lyra flanked him, arms crossed, her green gaze icy. I've tracked this rogue signal for 2 days, she said. Someone's feeding the rebels. He clenched his jaw. Got a shortlist? She swiped the screen, pulling up profiles of comms access personnel. Narrowed it to 3. One's our leak. Lucas scanned the names, stopping on one that hit like a punch. Lieutenant Nathan Holt. Delta 9 security chief. A guy he trusted. He exhaled hard. We need to catch him red-handed. Lyra nodded. Leave it to me. That night, they staked out the comms room from a dark corner. Holt slipped in. Glancing around before plugging a device into the system. He's sending now, Lyra whispered. Lucas gripped his plasma pistol and stepped out. Freeze, Holt. Holt flinched, but instead of panic. He smirked. So you finally caught me. Lyra advanced, eyes blazing. How long have you been Coran's dog? Holt laughed. Longer than you'd guess. And now. Before he could finish, Lyra lunged, twisting his arm until the device clattered to the floor. You're not warning them, she said, voice like steel. Lucas scooped up the gadget, checking it. The message hadn't sent. They'd made it in time. Holt snarled. You think nabbing me stops this? Coran's ready for you. Rigel's a trap. Lucas traded a look with Lyra. They were walking into an ambush. But backing off wasn't an option. Fine, Lucas said, facing Holt. We'll turn the tables before he can blink. Lyra smirked. And you're going to help? Holt's eyes widened. You can't make me turn on Coran. Lucas tilted his head. Oh, we won't force you. But if you don't help, the one getting screwed is you. Holt's fists balled up, cornered with no way out. What do you want? 48 hours later, a small transport lifted off Earth, cutting through the cosmic dark. Inside, Lucas, Lyra, and the Joint Strike team prepped for the raid. Lucas checked his gear, then glanced at Lyra. Odds of pulling this off. She smiled faintly. With luck, 50%. Without, maybe 10%. He laughed. Here's hoping luck's on our side today. Her gaze softened, a rare crack in her armor. Lucas, if this goes south, she started quietly. He cut her off. It won't. I've got your back, princess. She nodded, silent. Beyond the viewport. Rigel's base loomed, a fortress adrift among stars, ringed by guard ships. Lucas breathed deep. Welcome to hell. They didn't know Coran had been waiting all along. Outside Rigel base. Their transport ghosted toward Rigel, starlight glinting off its black hull. They were in enemy territory now. Inside, Lyra tweaked the cloaking system. Stealth shield holds for 5 minutes. We've got to move fast. Lucas watched the NAV screen. Nearest entry. A Zoran operative replied, tech access on the dark side. If we sync with their controls, we can slip in quiet. Lucas sighed. Sounds easy. Bet it won't be. Lyra shot him a look, smirking. You're learning how the universe works, pilot. They didn't suspect Coran had already clocked their move. The ship edged closer under cloak, avoiding scans. At the tech hatch, Lucas, Lyra, and the team suited up with oxygen masks. Locking onto the hull with mag clamps. Pop it now, Lyra ordered. A tech jacked into the exterior panel. Cracking it, 3, 2, 1, done. The hatch slid open. They piled into a pitch-black corridor, sealing it behind them. Lucas swept his rifle around. No guards. Lyra's grip tightened. Something's off. Then the alarm shrieked. They're on to us. A soldier yelled. A far door burst open, rebel troops flooding in, weapons hot. You called it, pilot. Lyra shouted, drawing her blade. Fight. Plasma fire lit up the hull. Lucas rolled clear of a volley, dropping 2 rebels in a heartbeat. Lyra spun, her energy dagger slicing through one foe before she snatched his gun and sprayed the rest. An energy grenade detonated nearby, slamming an Earth trooper into the wall. Lucas hauled him up. We've got to hit the control core, now. Lyra scanned the chaos. Realizing the enemy outnumbered them. This way, she signaled, leading them down a tighter passage to dodge the trap. But at a junction, a familiar shadow waited. Coran. He loomed ahead. Arms crossed, grinning. I knew you'd show. Lyra halted, eyes blazing. Ready to lose yet? He laughed. Oh, quite the opposite. Then, from behind, dozens of rebels closed in. Pinning them from all sides. Lucas gritted his teeth. We're boxed. Coran drew his red energy sword, its glow bouncing off his armor. Game's over, Lyra. She clutched her weapon. Flicking a glance at Lucas, and whispered, no, it's just starting. Rigel's narrow halls swarmed with rebels. Lucas and the team were surrounded, Coran commanding the fray with a smug grin. His red sword blazing. Lyra gripped her blade, eyes like ice. You won't win, Coran. He laughed heartily. Lyra, you're naive. You think you can take me and my hundreds? Lucas leaned in, muttering. Plan. She tightened her hold. Fight. And with that, all hell broke loose. Plasma blasts echoed, green and red light flaring wildly. Lucas dove for cover, picking off two rebels before ducking a searing beam. Lyra moved like lightning, her green sword clashing with Coran's red in a shower of sparks. Clang! The impact sent a shockwave, forcing nearby troops back. Coran grinned, shoving her off. You've gotten stronger, princess. Still not enough. He swung hard, aiming to end it. Lyra dodged, but a nick grazed her armored shoulder. Lucas saw her falter and pulled his heavy plasma gun. Hey, bastard! He fired. Boom! The shot rocketed toward Coran, who deflected it with a flick of his blade. Pathetic, pilot. You think you can match me? Lucas clenched his fists. Don't need to. Just slowing you down. Lyra seized the opening, lunging with full force. Aw! Her green blade slashed through Coran's armor, carving a deep gash across his chest. He roared, stumbling. You dare! She didn't let up, pressing her dagger to his throat. Surrender, Coran. He panted, green blood dripping onto the floor. He met her stare, then laughed. Killing me ends this war. Lucas stepped up. No, but it's a damn good start. Coran eyed them both, then sighed. Pity. I'm not dying today. He tapped his wrist. The base quaked violently. Lyra shouted, he triggered self-destruct. Coran smirked, hitting another button. A hidden panel slid open behind him. And he dove through, vanishing before they could react. Lucas cursed. Damn it. He's gone. But a bigger problem loomed, Rigel was about to blow. Lyra pulled up her map. Less than 5 minutes till detonation. We've got to move. Lucas yelled to the team, fall back. Follow us. They sprinted through crumbling halls, dodging explosions tearing the place apart. At the escape bay, Lyra hacked the controls, revealing a small shuttle. Lucas shoved everyone aboard. Get in. No time. Lyra was last. As she leapt in, Lucas slammed the launch. Hold on. The shuttle blasted free, cutting through black smoke. Moments later, a massive explosion swallowed Rigel in a fiery maw. They'd pulled it off. Inside, the team gasped for air, awed by their survival. Lucas grinned at Lyra. Well, that's the craziest mission I've ever run. She smiled back. You did good, pilot. He blinked. Did you just compliment me? I need that on record. She shook her head, but her eyes held a warmth he hadn't seen before. They'd won this round. But the war wasn't over. And Coran was still out there. Edge of Rigel's system. Their shuttle glided past Rigel's wreckage, the void aglow with the blast's aftermath. Victory tasted sweet, but no one relaxed. Coran had escaped. He'd slipped away before the base went up. If they didn't stop him soon, this fight would drag on forever. Lucas turned to Lyra. Where's he running? She punched commands into the console. Eyes locked on the radar. There's an energy spike nearby. Matches his ship's signature. He nodded. Then we hunt him down. The shuttle veered, plunging into the dark, chasing the war's endgame. Coran wasn't alone. He had backup. As they closed in, a mini-fleet of 5 rebel warships emerged, shielding a central command vessel, Coran's ride. Lucas gritted his teeth. That jerk's got a whole squadron. Lyra stayed cool. We punched through to him. He powered up weapons. Let's do it. Earth and Zoran fighters joined them, forming a tight assault wedge. All units. Target Coran's command ship. End it here. Lyra barked over comms. Lucas banked hard, dodging plasma before blasting a flanking ship to bits. A rebel warship fired back, unleashing a brutal energy wave. Lucas yanked the stick, spiraling clear. Damn! These things hit harder than I thought. Lyra smirked. Scared? He laughed, spinning to nail another ship. Nah. Just warming up. As they tangled with the escorts, Zoran's ships broke through, closing on Coran's flagship. Lyra, we've got an opening. Lucas shouted. She nodded. Now. They surged forward, piercing the last defenses, homing in on Coran's ship. Their shuttle touched down inside the flagship's bay. Lucas and Lyra leapt out, guns ready. The ship's hulls were dark and too quiet. He knows we're here, Lyra whispered. Lucas bared his teeth. Good. Let's show him he can't run this time. They moved fast, heading for the main bridge where Coran waited. The doors parted. And there he stood, grinning once more. We meet again, Lyra. She drew her green energy sword, its light shimmering. You're not escaping this time, Coran. He pulled his own blade, chuckling. I wouldn't dream of it. The final showdown began. Their swords clashed in a blinding flare. Coran struck hard, his swings fierce and precise. But Lyra was faster, sharper. Lucas hung back, picking off stray rebel grunts to keep her focused. Coran spun, slashing wide, but Lyra ducked, countering with a strike to his arm. He growled, retreating, still defiant. You can't kill me, Lyra. I'm Zoran's future. She gripped her sword tighter. You're just a greedy fool chasing power. She charged, swinging again, and this time, she didn't hold back. Her green blade pierced Coran's chest. He gasped, eyes wide with shock. You dare. She held firm, staring him down. Zoran doesn't need you. She yanked the blade free, and Coran crumpled. With his death, the ship's systems spiraled into chaos. The rebel fleet, leaderless, began to scatter. Lucas and Lyra bolted before self-destruct kicked in. Back on their shuttle, the Allied fleet claimed victory. Days later, they stood on Delta IX's launch pad, gazing at the stars. It's over, Lucas said. Lyra nodded. The war's done. Zoran and Earth have peace ahead. He glanced at her. So, you heading out? She paused. Eventually. Not yet. He smiled. I'll wait. She met his eyes, a rare smile breaking through. Not too long, pilot. They stood there, under the night sky, knowing the war was won, but their story wasn't finished. Maybe it was just beginning.